It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Mike Evans. I'll be your host this morning. Man, I see a ton of you folks out there out on our website. Lincoln, Nebraska, Los Angeles. See, there's a whole cluster of you guys out there in the Ozarks and the South Central Missouri range. Scurry, I think that's Texas. Bowling Green. Looks like you guys got stuck yesterday. Muncie, Coal City. I see folks out there up in Chicago. I see folks out there in Maine, Florida. East Coast, West Coast. Glad to have you on board. Thanks very much for joining with us and listening this morning. You know, we're going to talk about a couple of things, but I got to tell you, this morning's program is going to be a very important one for you to pay attention to. And I say that because we're going to cover a couple of aspects that I think you really need to know about. The first is on the VA scandal and why Obama's been silent, and I think I have a pretty good answer for that. The second one is biosurveillance, and I need you to be aware of what's happening here. The third segment, HIPPA, no secrets allowed. You are now naked and afraid. We'll make sure that you are fully understanding of exactly what the biosurveillance issue in the previous segment, and you're waiving your HIPAA rights. And I got to tell you, when I read you some of these HIPAA statements and the fact that there are waivers in there that allow them to release your information for protection of the president. Really? I mean, are you trying to tell me that 86-year-old Mrs. McGillicuddy needs her files released to the national government for national security purposes and to protect the president of the United States? Under whose definition? Where does that come from? I got to tell you, America, you have no idea what you're doing when you sign these HIPAA release forms. And your doctor doesn't know. The rules have all been changed since August, September, October of 2013, just before Obamacare went into play, and it's going to blow your mind. Our fourth topic, a phoenix of tyranny today is rising from the ashes of liberty. I got to tell you, folks, we're not in big trouble. We're not worried about the enemy getting over the fence or getting behind our lines. They are embedded in our lines, and they are tearing our nation apart. This is going to be one heck of a bang-up show today, so make sure that you're listening. And if you cannot, for some reason, you can always call our listen line and listen to it at your leisure. That number is 415-325-0725. You can listen live in the morning. You can also catch the program after about 9:45 or 10 o'clock in the morning. You can listen to it anytime at your leisure by simply dialing that number, 415-325-0725. It's our listen line. It's provided to us free by Audio Now. It's a free service for you. It doesn't cost anything. It's a long-distance call, but so what? You got unlimited minutes on your NSA personal tracking device anyway. You can also catch our program on Patriot FB. That's Patriot like Facebook. PatriotFB.com, where our program audio streams every morning live. And you can also find it now on PatriotFBRadio.com, where you can listen live and, of course, podcasted. PatriotFBRadio.com. You can also catch our show live on constitutionclub.ning.com. And, of course, you can always listen on our Spreaker feed on our website. You can watch the video live on our... I know I got a face made for radio. Can't help that. God gave it to me the way it is. But you can catch our program live in video on our website at americasvoicenow.org, or You can catch it later on and then share it with many, 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 many others on YouTube or right on our website. Right on our website at americasvoicenow.org. You can scroll down, and on the right side there are 4 little boxes. Every day, those 4 boxes refresh themselves with that day's programs, and they're usually up by about noon. So, and then up until then, the previous day's programs are there. All right. So I want to hear from you. Please make sure that you communicate with me directly. You can do so by emailing me to mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Guys, I got to tell you, this is going to be an amazing program today. This first topic of why Obama is silent on the VA scandal and the deaths that are associated with it, everybody's asking the question. I mean, the White House press corps is asking, the media is asking. It's all a dog and pony show for you anyway, but I'm going to tell you why. And the answer is very, very simple. He won't answer and he will not come out and publicly speak about this until the minions and the sycophants within this administration have verified and vetted that there is no direct way he can be implicated. It's very simple, folks. Let me clarify for you what I mean. The mice are scrambling right now. They are running around like chickens with their heads cut off to assure him and his handlers, who have been explicitly and empirically embarrassed over and over and over and over and over and over and over, that there is no one who can later produce a memo, an email, a phone call, a recording, or some verbal statement. Yes, I spoke to the president directly about this, because he wants to avoid guilty knowledge. I'm going to tell you why, too. He's avoiding another claim of liar in chief, but more importantly, he's avoiding a claim of an impeachment charge for aiding and abetting in the death of veterans. You see, people have died here, and he saw what happened with Benghazi when only 4 were dead. Imagine what it's going to be like when we now know that we know empirically that there are at least 40. The numbers are actually growing. We now believe it's well over 100. And it may, ladies and gentlemen, turn out to be hundreds, plural. And so what he's doing is he is making sure, and he is combing through the electronic digital media that is all part of the massive government to make sure that no one can come forth and say, but I sent the president's chief of staff a direct memo, or I discussed this with the president at a meeting at so-and-so. That's what this is about. That's why the silence. Now, the truth is, this scenario has gotten completely out of control. Yesterday, it was released that there are additional memos and proof that he was notified not just in 2008 via the transition team, but in 2010. And it was explicit. They were told by people within the VA and whistleblowers directly that they should be checking the waiting lists and the fraud associated with those waiting lists, that the times were unrealistic, that people were being placed on those waiting lists in order to avoid giving them an actual appointment. They knew. They knew all along. And look, it shouldn't be hard for you to imagine this, because they knew in advance about the Obamacare problems that were going to be incurred. They knew in advance, about the IRS issue. Now, I know this president loves to sit there and say, but I learned about it on the news like the rest of you. And with all due respect, I saw a report yesterday that this is the fifth time that the president has used that excuse. And with all due respect, I believe it's within the realm of any individual in the nation to ask the obvious question. Well, exactly what is it that you're doing all day? If the media is notifying you about Fast and Furious, which was one of them, the VA scandal, which is another one, the IRS scandal, which is a third, I mean, what exactly are all these people bustling about and running around doing all this work, hard work at the White House? I mean, you've got people who do everything except wipe your butt, maybe even that. And I don't understand, and most Americans don't, how you can be isolated and insulated from knowledge. Knowledge of these things that affect lives. You see, here's the problem with the VA scandal and why this one has got these guys running scared. This directly affects, one, virtually millions upon millions of Americans. Number two, there are definitely empirically attributable deaths to it, and they're deaths of veterans, which is an emotional pull, because everybody knows at least one. Most have at least one in their family. Third, this is not an international incident, so they cannot throw the blanket of national security over this and smother it. Get it? I mean, how are you going to claim that you didn't put Bob Smith on a list for a colonoscopy or an X-ray, and that's got something to do with national security? You can't cover it up like you did Benghazi, like you did Fast and Furious. Oh, well, that deals with Mexico. Let's slam national security down over everything. There's the problem, folks. This is a hometown, homegrown problem. National security is not affected. They have no way to cover this. They're lying open and naked. And they know it. And this president will not come out. How many times have we seen this president do something we've seen virtually every other president in our lifetimes do? A national television address. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is so-and-so. I am the President of the United States of America. I'm coming here on national news tonight to speak to you about blah, 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 blah. How many times have we seen that with President Hussein Obama? How many times have we seen that? There's never a mea culpa. There's never a, we need to deal with this problem. There's national crises, international crises, emergency crises, exigent threats all over the place. And he's off, on the putting green. The truth of the matter is, there's no avoidance for this because he can't hide behind national security secrecy claims. Now, I'm going to tell you something. When we cover our second and our third segments this morning, and I explain to you how HIPAA is going to be used, I'm just going to give you a taste of it because I want you to understand the implications and the dangers associated with this. I've downloaded and printed off the HIPAA privacy notices and privacy practices of a number of different hospitals. And here's an example. This is Pittsburgh Mercy Health System. They're allowed to release your information and health information for federal officials, to federal officials, authorized federal officials, of course, authorized. That's a big difference there. For intelligence, counterintelligence, and other national security activities authorized by law. Excuse me? How did Mrs. McGillicuddy's tumor become a matter of national security and counterintelligence? That's only one. I've actually got one here that directly specifies the life of the president. Where is that one? I'll have to find it for you. My point is this. You see, when I keep telling you that we live in a police state and the media hasn't announced it to you yet, you keep on saying to me, come on, that's not true. You're just making a big deal out of nothing. You're overblowing it. I am? I don't think so. The point is simply this, ladies and gentlemen. We are in a point and at a time when, for all intents and purposes, here it is. This is Missouri Department of Social Services. This is their Notice of Privacy Practices regarding your protected health information. DSS, Department of Social Services, follows the laws that tell us when we must, and they use they emphasize must with an italicized. When we must share health information and when we can share health information without your permission, DSS will share information, and I'm going to read them all to you later, but just for the record, to the federal government to protect the country, the president, government workers, and for other government programs. So here's my point. To protect the president? You know, I didn't realize that Betty's melanoma threatened the president. Soon, they'll be able to cover up a VA scandal by saying it's to protect the president. It's a matter of national security. What's national security about the fact that 100 men are dead? 100 men that we know of. Some of them by their own hand, because they waited so long for care and treatment that it was easier to take a pistol and blow their own brains out than to continue to wait. This is a president who stood up many times and repeatedly stated over and over and over. He lambasted George Bush, saying the VA was a disgrace. And a president who classified himself as a military president should have done more. Then he took the reins and made it worse. Does that exonerate Bush? Heck no. Bush should have been charged and hung for treason. Absolutely. As should President Barack Obama. Impeachment should be used to immediately remove him from office and protect the nation from further damage. When I show you what the HIPPA disclosure is going to be of biosurveillance that I'm going to touch on in our second, you're going to realize exactly how far this has gone. The man is protecting himself because he does not want to be implicated in the deaths of scores of Americans. And the rule change isn't through yet. The rule change on HHS and all of this stuff for national security and intelligence and counterintelligence, what does that have to do with your health care? We're only going to use it for an isolated guy named Muhammad. Bunk. You're a liar. Just like you're only going to use metadata for the occasional. Well, then why are you turning it over to the DEA? Why is the DEA, and for those of you who aren't aware of this, because it only got a blip's worth of recognition on the news, we are monitoring through the National Security Agency every telephone call, not monitoring, actually recording and storing for up to 30 days every telephone call in and out of the Bahamas. And you know what they're doing it under? The guys that they have an agreement in place through the DEA. So the NSA has now taken the DEA's agreement with the Bahamian government and said, look, we've got this agreement in place so that we can catch narco traffickers. And we're now recording every phone call in the Bahamas, unbeknownst, of course, to the Bahamas and the Bahamians. And the NSA is doing it. They're not doing it for, I mean, look, the Bahamas have not threatened to, kidnap 300 12-year-old girls. They haven't threatened to blow up car bombs in Manhattan. They haven't threatened any dirty bombs in Nicaragua. So where's the national security threat? There is no national security threat. They're doing it so that they can fluff up the narco trafficking issues. That's not national security, number one. Number two, it's not the purview of the NSA. We have a DEA for that. Ladies and gentlemen, every president since 1900 has been betraying you. Every Congress, every member of every agency, every member of the judiciary. They're all in on it. There's no secret. The truth of the matter is, our nation is awash in tyranny. Awash. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to tackle our second topic this morning, which you cannot miss. Biosurveillance, the new treason from HHS. And they're doing it, by the way. There's no one in Congress that's approving this. They're just doing it under a rule change. When I explain this to you, you're going to be furious. I hope, for your sake, you're not listening to this program at night because you're not going to sleep all night. All right. We have been graciously offered an opportunity by Michael Slack, who is a friend of ours, and he runs a website called AmericanResumeService.com. That's AmericanResumeService.com. He's offered for the next $2,200 packages that he uses to create and develop and produce professional resumes for you, that he will offer that package to anyone who's a listener of AVN for $100. That's 50% off, and then he'll donate the whole $100 to AVN to keep us on the air. You need a resume? You got a son or a daughter, a husband or a wife? This is the perfect opportunity. It's AmericanResumeService.com. And I would strongly encourage you to participate in it and get out there, visit the website. You can also call Michael if you have any questions or you'd have to get any details about it. It's area code 417-264-2486 during normal business hours. It's 8 to 5. 417-264-2486. Please make sure that you support and sponsor and patronize our sponsors, including the battery station. They ship nationwide. They are one of the largest purveyors of batteries and electronic products around the country. They've got any kind of battery you can imagine, they've got it. And they are one of the largest distributors of batteries and battery technology in the nation. You can find their website by going to batterystation.com. You can also call them at 417-257-7799. And please make sure that you contact and participate with them. Please make sure that you visit our friends over at Atlas Survival Shelters. And if you're interested in one of their shelters, please make sure that you tell them that you heard and found out about them from America's Voice Now. We actually will get a penny out of that at some point if you buy one of their shelters. They're not inexpensive. These are shelters you can bury in your yard. They're, $50,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000. But I got to tell you, they're unbelievable shelters. AtlasSurvivalShelters.com. All right, we're going to take this quick break. We'll be right back. Biosurveillance, the new treason from HHS. America, prepare to defend yourself. All right. We're back. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Thanks for riding with us this morning. Boy, have we got some breaking news for you. And guess what? It's been hidden from you for just long enough that today's the last day for public comment in the Federal Treasonous Register for the federal biosurveillance plan that will give anyone in the federal government access directly to your private medical records under the auspices of anything that they want to seek it for. National security purposes, public health, and everything falls underneath. I mean, they only need to throw out about 3 or 4 terms, and there's basically nothing that they can't cover underneath these auspices. They're piecing together a sweeping national biosurveillance system. And this system will give bureaucrats real-time access. Real-time. You leave the doctor's office, and because electronic medical records are now required under Obamacare, they will literally have instant access after you've left the office within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, an unelected, unaccountable bureaucrat, some pencil pusher, some person who's got devious ideas, some person who's selling your information to someone else so that they can obtain a credit card in your name, it'll all be an open book. Ladies and gentlemen, this is beyond the pale. With the stroke of a pen and a slight change in the Federal Register, there will be no discussion before your alleged representatives in Congress. There will be zero discussion from the Ministry of Propaganda. Why didn't you know about it until today, the May 21st, the last day for you to submit comments, public comment? Why is it that the Ministry of Propaganda has withheld this? Is this not major information? Does not every American want to know that the government will have direct access to their biosurveillance data in real time? Does Mrs. McGillicuddy want someone in Homeland Security or the HHS or the Department of the Interior looking at her records to determine, well, she wrote a blog post about us that we didn't like, so we're going to mention and spill it to through some nefarious means that she's had syphilis or she's had an abortion 20 years ago. Now she's writing an article about pro-life. And we're going to use it against her. That's what this is. This is an enemies list. I've been telling you that from Jump Street. The Obamacare system is nothing more than a massive database where every American is touched and completely, totally, abjectly controlled. Every aspect about you, your income, who you work for, where you go, where you came from, what you buy, all of it's being tracked. All of it's being monitored. Now your personal information, from every little bump and wart that you have, right down to every disease you've ever had, right down to all of the medical history that has ever existed about you, is all an open book to any pencil-neck geek, unelected, unaccountable, unnamed bureaucrat. Your entire life will now be laid wide open for any health worker, slave master, crony of the administration, and all of their affiliates. Friends, donors, benefactors, traitors, statists, elitists. Anyone who perceives you to be an enemy can peruse your medical information at will. In real time. Every cold, every sneeze, every pill you've ever taken, every consultation you have with your doctor, every private discussion you have. Laid open bare. And you are under biosurveillance. Biosurveillance. Not just your phone call, not your metadata, not your email, your physical body. All under the guise of national security. National security? How did your abortion or your syphilis or your gonorrhea or perhaps something else, perhaps your cancer, perhaps your esophageal GERD become national security material? How did the gout in your big toe become a concern? You see, here's the understanding that you need to have. The individuals that are associated with this can take this data, all your purchases, everything you bought, everything you own, everything you have, everything you've ever done, every person you've ever talked to, and they can take this information. And within, look, it doesn't even take a lot of special study. In fact, there's an article out there in Wired this morning that espionage in a post-privacy society by Katie Collins. She is talking to Richard Aldrich, who is speaking in Amsterdam. We are living in a transparent society, and it will be a bit like living in a nudist colony. He's a historian that specializes in espionage, and he's published a book about the GCHQ, which is the NSA Brit version. And he had a couple of very, very interesting quotes to say, but these organizations are becoming very cleverer than the CIA, cleverer than the KGB. And what he's talking about there is big intelligence gatherers, the airlines, the banks, the internet providers, Tesco, your doctor. And they have more information than the GCHQ and the NSA put together. You see, the truth is, you are at a stage where there is no privacy left. And because of the fact that you have no information that you can hold and maintain to yourself, and especially relating to your medical information, that information can and will be used against you. I mean, think of it this way. Who needs a drone strike on Americans when you find out that the person that is getting the most under your skin, let's call that Dinesh D'Souza, who was just pled guilty under the federal hammer that for a crime that has only been charged for decades and decades and decades as a civil fine, but he's just committed or agreed to a felony plea for the self-same thing. Why is that? I'm going to tell you why. Because the enemies list is already in full-blown play. Twyla Brace, I believe that is Brass Brace, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, a public health nurse and a co-founder of Citizens Council for Health Freedom. Here she says that and she has a link to the 52-page draft of the proposed National Health Security Strategy for 2015 through 2018. The deadline for comment is 5 p.m. today. Why has the Ministry of Propaganda been withholding this? Why doesn't Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, and NBC tell Mrs. McGillicuddy, who's watching Good Morning America, that her entire health record is going to be laid wide open for untold eyes to look at? Her x-rays, her photographs, her mammograms, her pap smear results? Are you kidding me? Who's got hemorrhoids and who doesn't? Why is that a matter for national security? Just listen for a couple minutes. Health situational awareness includes, this is a quote from their document. Health situational awareness includes biosurveillance and other health and non-health inputs, including lab diagnostics, lab results, health service utilization, active intelligence, and supply chain information, as well as systems and processes for effective communication among responders and critical health resource monitoring and allocation. What does that mean? That basically says there's nothing that's private and the world is their oyster, and that under the guise of oversight, they can pretty much get anything and do anything they want, and there isn't a damn thing you can do about it. Brace warns that the NHSS proposal would allow the federal government to monitor an individual's behavior before, during, and after any government-defined health incident, which could be anything from a local outbreak of the flu to a terrorist anthrax attack. Quote, it's very broad, she says. It doesn't seem to have any limits, except they say something about, properly protecting the data. But from our perspective, if the government gets access to this kind of data and is allowed to do research with the data, then our privacy has already been compromised. The government has already said that our data is their data for their purposes of national health security. It is very clear to us that really the government is moving toward real-time access, towards close collaboration of government and doctor for ready access to the electronic medical record and to conduct research and analysis. I don't think they ever mentioned the word merging, but this is a very close connection they want between public health, which is the government, and clinical health, which is your doctor's office and the hospital, for whatever diseases they choose to have reported. But it's not just diseases, ladies and gentlemen. It goes way beyond that. In fact, she goes on to say, in other words, anything and everything could become a health threat by the government standard. According to the draft proposal, NHSS will create, quote, health situational awareness by collecting, aggregating, and processing data from both traditional and non-traditional sources, such as social media, and from various governmental and non-governmental stakeholders. See, anytime you hear that word stakeholders, recognize that you're about to be bent over a barrel and hit really hard. Quote, decision makers will have the capability to visualize and manipulate data from many sources to create an operational picture suited to the specific situation and the decisions before them. Decision makers of whom? We didn't elect or account these people. They're not accountable to us. No one in the HHS takes an oath to the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen. No one. They're not law enforcement. They don't take an oath. Brace warns the government's biosurveillance plan is much more intrusive than the data collection currently being done by the Centers for Disease Control and Detection and Prevention. Quote, we're of the mind that the Fourth Amendment actually means something. So you can't access everybody's patient medical records just because you say there is a security threat or just because you say it's good for the American public, said Brace. But the fact of the matter is that the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is HIPAA, already allows the government and the state government and the local government and anyone who is a public health agency to have access to your medical records, identifiable medical records, without your consent in any way, shape, or form. It is in the HIPAA privacy rule, which has the full force and effect of law. But that wasn't actually put in by Congress. It was put in by the Department of Health and Human Services, end quote. And it was done during the privacy regs changes regarding the economic stimulus in Obamacare. See, during the Obamacare creation, don't forget, it was a 2,000-page bill that became 25,000 pages worth of rules. And Congress doesn't have to vote on the rules. They're all written by bureaucrats, by the sycophants of this administration, by the people who are doing everything they can to write those rules to force us into a national government healthcare system, single-payer, unified, just like Britain has. But here's the problem. They're also writing extraneous capabilities in there that Britain doesn't have. All of the surveillance and the monitoring and the biosurveillance, Britain doesn't have all that. Neither does Canada. So for those of you sycophants out there who say, nothing this president does is wrong, nothing. Let me tell you something. You ain't getting what you think you're getting. Brace points out that one of the dangers is the vast amount of medical data that is warehoused in these gigantic electronic databases. And it's only available to government-approved researchers. See, here's the problem. And you're going to hear this when I read this HIPAA stuff to you next. They say that they can use it for research purposes. But here's the point. This is just like the EPA. Well, we have empirical science to back up what we need. Okay, show it to us so we can peer review it. Nope. Nobody gets to see the great wizards' research know-how. Well, wait a minute. You're saying that you have empirical proof that we need to do this because of the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the blah, 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 and you've got all this empirical scientific proof. We'd like to have some independent scientists peer review it. Nope, you can't see it. But we're passing all these draconian rules about it that we can take away your property and rule that you can't pull the leaves out of a stream, and that, if you so much as pee out off the back deck after you've had a beer on a Friday night and you live 2 miles away from civilization in the woods, we can give you a felony for it. She goes on to point out, now it could be the entire electronic medical record, or it could be that they just have ready access to the electronic medical records because it's on a state health information exchange, for instance. And if they are one of the partners in the state health information exchange, they can start the data draw. So they can draw the data off anytime they want. And, by the way, it's also open to stakeholders. You know who stakeholders are? Well, let me tell you, for the environmental world, the stakeholders are the Sierra Club and all of these groups out there, these environmental extremists. Now, in this case, and it's the stakeholders are the same people who are doing these studies that show that, global warming is, we've got, 8 minutes left and the world is going to collapse by lunchtime and, all of this BS. So, and here's where she gets the point exactly right. She hits the nail right on the head. One of the things we look at is how research can be done in a way to push policies that we disagree with. They come up with findings that no one else can validate because nobody else has access to all of the data the way the government has, and no one can ever counter it. Now, let me explain to you how this works. For those of you that don't know, there's a game out there in the mattress industry. You didn't know that, did you? What does mattresses have to do with healthcare, Evans? Shut up. No, hear me out. You've all seen the mattress ad that says, if you can beat the price on our mattress, we'll give it to you for free. And it's a $600 or $1,000 mattress. Guess what? Here's how it works. The mattress chains go to CERTA, big name in mattresses, and they say, we want you to create a white label line for us of mattresses. And you put the CERTA label on it, and you call it the Princess Delight. Now, you can't sell the Princess Delight to anyone else. You're not allowed to sell it to any other company. You can't sell it to another chain. You can't sell it through Sears. You can't sell it through a catalog, and you can't even sell it on your own website. The Princess Delight belongs to Mattresses R Us. That branding. Then, now bear in mind that the Princess Delight, which they've just named the Princess Delight, is actually the one model that CERTA sells to everybody else as the princess, right? So you then walk in and you see the Princess Delight, and you call around and you keep trying to beat the price because you're trying to get a free mattress out of the deal. And their price is $8.99, and you call around and everybody says, well, we don't carry the Princess Delight. So you can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that anyone else, you can't say, hey, here's an ad for the Princess Delight. I found one, and they're selling it for $600. You owe me a free mattress. So you cannot possibly beat the deal. It's a scam. They reeled you in like a fish. Then you go back to the store, and they say, see, I told you couldn't beat our price. Well, what I saw, CERTA Princess, no, that's a different mattress altogether. It is. The label is different, but the rest of it's the same. And here's the same argument they're going to do here. They have all access to the research. They completely own the research, and no one else is allowed to see it. The EPA is already doing it. So is the United Nations, and so is the entire climate change industry. And it is an industry. Mark my words and make no mistake about it. Climate change is a business. You see, here's the problem that you have. Government, at this point, has all the police power. They can capture and retain all this data and then use the data to produce propaganda and phony science. It may even, look, any statistician, any accountant can tell you that if you take a series of numbers, you can make it look like the company's doing better than it really is. Or take a group of statistics and you can make it look like if you're a pro-gun guy, that guns aren't a problem, and if you're an anti-gun guy, guns are the problem. You can take a statistical group of numbers and you can say, look, we need affirmative action in universities for this reason. Or if you're an anti-affirmative action person, you can take that same group of numbers and skew those numbers to show you a result that benefits your argument and position. That's the problem with statistics. Remember the old phrase, damn lies and statistics? Because they can be manipulated. So can numbers. That's why there are standards in accounting. Because every accountant knows, hey, I can get creative with these numbers and make it look like this company's doing a land sales business and everybody wants to invest, only to find out that it was all fraud and manipulation and that they're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. It's the same game here. I'm going to read it to you again because now that I've said that to you, I want you to understand the implications of what her statement was. One of the things we look at is how research can be done in a way to push policies that we disagree with. They come up with findings that nobody else can validate because nobody else has access to all that data the way the government has, and no one can ever counter it. According to the National BioSurveillanc Science and Technology Roadmap, which was written last June at the behest of the president under an executive order, effectively, appropriately, and securely sharing health event data, including parts of electric patient records and laboratory data, has significant potential to improve national awareness of incidents that could progress to impact, here it comes, national security. Boom, shakalaka-laka. The magic word's been pulled out, baby. National security, we can justify anything under that. When we call national security, all things stop. Biosurveillance is defined by the NHS as the process of active data gathering and appropriate analysis and interpretation of biosphere data that might relate to disease activity and threats to human or animal health, whether infectious, toxic, metabolic, or otherwise. There's the gateway big enough to drive the state of Alaska through. And regardless of intentional or natural origin, in order to achieve early warning of health threats, early detection of health events, and overall situational awareness of disease activity, extending electronic reporting of health information, including laboratory results, to public health serves as an example of rapidly communicating useful information. Useful for whom and under what circumstance and for what end purpose. Routine, daily use of such capabilities may be leveraged to address critical requirements in the context of an emergency. That's a White House document. When we come back, I'm going to blow your doors off. HIPPA, what you thought was protecting you, has betrayed you. You've been sold out, and every secret is laid bare. You are now naked and afraid. Email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. Give me feedback on this segment and episode, folks. We'll be right back.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right. I told you this was going to be a earth-shaking segment this morning, and I meant it. And I'm going to tell you how easy it is for you to try to prove me wrong. And I dare you. I triple, quadruple, double, sextuple dog dare you to prove me wrong. Because I've got the empirical proof in their own words, and you can find it yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to go review a link. I want you to do your own due diligence and your own homework to understand exactly how far down the rabbit hole our nation has fallen and how everything associated to Obamacare is an enslavement exercise. What do you mean an enslavement exercise? It's just for us to be able to wipe our noses and get cold sores resolved. Really? Let me tell you what the real truth is. Ben Carson came out and said, like slavery, Obamacare robs you of your ability to control your own life, in a new article that's out there on CNS News. It's up on our website and on our Facebook page and up on Patriot FB. Go find it. Here's my comment on that. Obamacare and the subsequent abuses of privacy, your Fourth and Fifth Amendment violations, you know, the ones that say you have no privacy and then the one that makes you sign up under law and waive your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination because they're going to use this stuff against you for investigative, audit, and prosecution purposes. And it says that right in their language, not mine. So therefore, you are being forced by one law to give up your Fifth Amendment right that preceded the passage of the Obamacare Act by, 30,000 years of human history. But your Fourth and Fifth Amendment right violations and the lawless application of rules by HHS that parade as law. Parade as law. They're rules, but they carry the weight of law. And our Constitution very clearly and explicitly states, no law may be passed by anyone but Congress. You never gave Congress the permission to say, you have my limited power of attorney and you may hand it off to Kathleen Sebelius or her successor. You have my limited power of attorney to act on my behalf in my best interest, and I'm authorizing you to allow HHS to write 25,000 pages worth of rules that act as law against my best interest, that violate my privacy, violate my Fourth Amendment, my Fifth Amendment rights, that allow you to gather all this data about me, sell it to anyone you want, leak it to anyone you want, use it against me as a weapon. Who would do such a thing? What person would agree to that? But all of this, Obamacare and these subsequent abuses of privacy, all conflate to make Obamacare worse than slavery. Why can I say that? How dare I say that? Here comes the hate mail. Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because no one can escape it. You see, even in the time of slavery, some people escaped. Some were able to buy their freedom. Some were actually given their freedom by their masters. It was wrong. It was a terrible thing that we allowed to happen in our nation. But there were some people that escaped. They escaped from it, or they were born free, or they were able to obtain their freedom in some way. But under healthcare, folks, there is no freedom. There is no railroad to liberty. Why? Because no one can escape it. Every person touches the healthcare system and the medical field some point in time in their lifetime. It's impossible to not be touched by it, whether it's your birth itself, which almost always happens in a hospital, or the immunization records in order for you to be able to go to school. every aspect of your life under Obamacare and the NSA and all this other data surveillance stuff makes your life now open to inspection by unelected, unknown, and unaccountable people. And partisans, worse yet. These are partisans. These aren't just people that are, going around like drone bees with one function, just accomplish the job, accomplish the job, accomplish the job. These are people who go around with the idea of accomplish the job at all tasks and at all costs, and no matter who I got to stomp on to get my political ideology through, I will accomplish the task at all. You see, there's a big difference between the mantra by the drone buzzer and the ideologue partisan. They will use this information to enslave you in ways that you can never imagine, number one, and number two, never escape from. At least when you were a physical slave, you had the option to everybody revolt or everybody escape, or even singularly escape. But now, every living, breathing human being, black, white, Asian, Christian, Muslim, everyone is under the domination and control of the state. How do I know that? Well, I'm going to read you the statement right out of their own mouth. I just pulled up, and here's how you can prove me. Here's how you can prove me right and prove yourself wrong about the good intentions you have for Obamacare. I just pulled this up from Missouri Department of Social Services. I encourage you to go to your own state and pull it up. What you're looking for is HIPAA privacy disclosure. HIPAA privacy disclosure or HIPAA privacy notice. Type that into any browser. I don't care what browser you use. I don't care what search engine you use. Type it into any browser. And then click through on the links. Now, what I did is I just went in and I typed in St. John's and I typed in Mercy and I printed a few of them out. It doesn't matter which St. John's, and it doesn't matter which Mercy, because every city's got at least one of each, right? Anyway, here's what it says. This is all about, and look at it and read it. And notice that you got to read the whole thing, because the first one is always sounds so innocuous and so friendly. Well, we're going to use it for bill payment and so forth. Don't worry about it. But then you start getting to the more onerous stuff after you get bored. And the average person doesn't even have the reading skills to get through the first 5 paragraphs of this thing, much less 3 pages deep. Information handling. In our normal business operations, DSS may receive protected health information, which is information identifying you and which includes some indication of your medical condition, blah, 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 blah. A health information, and they can disclose this to medical professionals, health information networks about Medicaid eligibility, insurance companies, healthcare providers to pay claims, or hospitals, medical professionals, and health information networks for your treatment. Okay, so we all say, all right, I get it. If I go over to the doctor and he's a specialist and you sent me over there because I got a wart on my big toe, you got to make sure that the medical record goes so he knows what he's looking at. I get it. We all get it. But that's not what you need to worry about. Here's the part that you need to worry about. DSS follows the laws. I love the way they keep throwing the word law in here. Like they're just trying to scare the living excrement out of you. DSS follows the laws that tell us when we must. And they put the word must in italics, ladies and gentlemen, because the goal is to emphasize that word must. DSS follows the law that tells us when we must share health information and when we can share health information without your permission. Interesting. When we must share health information, and when we can, at our discretion, share your health information without your permission. Here's the list. As required by law. There's that magic word again. Subject to limited restrictions. What restrictions are there? I'd like to know. What are the limiting ones? Are they limits based on my desires or based on government's alleged protections of me? Apparently, there are no protections for me. So, what are the limited restrictions that I have? I'd like to know. Inquiring minds, they want to know. 2, to public health authorities to report such things as contagious diseases. And now we all get the contagious disease part. See, that's thrown in there as the red herring to say, oh, okay, it's just contagious. Here comes. For birth, death, and immunization records. Boom, shakalaka-laka. There we go. Nobody escapes from birth to death. And since everybody's got to be immunized by law, baby, boy, we got you from the earliest date. In fact, here, I don't care if you're born at home to a midwife. You cannot get into school without immunization records, so we got you cold. 3, to the police or military as required by law. Okay, what law? Well, we're not going to tell you that because the laws haven't all been written yet. We're just still working on the rules. To the military? I mean, I didn't know that, the lump on my knee had anything to do with the United States military because I'm way past service date and they probably couldn't care less. For court and administrative proceedings. There we go. Court and administrative proceedings. Well, here's the difference. A court means that you're actually operating under a court that is allegedly in place under the Constitution. But an administrative proceeding is something totally then again different. And here's what it is. Under an administrative proceeding, 1, you have no right to a jury trial. End of argument. If you didn't know that, that's your fault. You should have been listening to this show a long time ago. Number 1, you have no jury trial under administrative proceedings. Number 2, the judge almost invariably works for the agency, the administrative agency that is holding the proceeding. And so whose side do you think he's going to find on? Number 3, they set the rules in administrative proceedings, and therefore they can limit the amount of evidence that you can bring and present on your behalf as in your defense. And they can hold you accountable, and they can punish you based on rules and regulations. There's no limits on the judge. He can do pretty much whatever he wants. And it doesn't even have to be a judge. It could just be some guy who's an administrator for an agency that says, we, the collective board, which is the Southern Justice Group, just us, we decide that you're not going to get that cancer treatment. Or we decide that, hey, you know what, we're going to send this information out to anybody we so choose. Or we're going to hold you accountable, and we're going to charge you, and we're going to penalize you. And if you don't, we're going to go out there and we're going to make sure that we get a chance to get the money from you through your paycheck, through a garnishment. And we got a judge standing right here who's already in agreement. Right, Judge? Uh-huh. That's right, says the judge. To health oversight authorities to see that government programs are being run properly. Well, whose advantage or benefit is that? Ask any one of the veterans who goes to the VA clinic, and I can guarantee you right now that none of those government programs are being run properly, and all of the information that they're gathering and collecting and sorting and spinning and dumping, it's not anything to do with the benefit of the patients. In fact, they've got secret lists. To the federal government to protect the country. Quote, comma, the president, comma, government workers, comma, and for other government programs. What programs? What workers? What is the protection of the country got to do with my medical records? You see, that outburst of anger shows that maybe you are unhinged. Maybe what we need is a medical evaluation of you so that we can pass that on. Maybe you're a threat to the nation. Maybe you're a threat to the president. Maybe you're a threat to a government worker. Maybe you are a threat to those other government programs. Well, you can't be a threat to a government program. Well, you know what I mean. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not figured out by now the exact implications of everything that I've told you about here today, if you do not see the implications of a totalitarian fascistic police state in control of everything that you touch, that you hear, that you see, that you buy, that you visit, that you look upon, Every word you hear, every doctor you see, every piece of information about you, every product you buy, every credit card swipe you make, every mile you travel. I've laid this challenge out now for 2 years. 2 years. And I'm going to lay it out again. I will give you a $100 debt. Well, it's a Federal Reserve note, but it's a debt. If you can give me one example of how all of this government surveillance, monitoring, and information gathering benefits you personally. And you've got to take into account the totality of all of it. Your email, your phone calls, your medical records, your purchases, your travels, who you talk to, where you talk to, who you wrote an email to, all of it. It's a $100 bet. Guess what? I've been offering that deal for over 2 years. I've not had a single taker yet. And if you want to write me, you can. It's Mike at americasvoicenow.org. Mike at Americas, that's a plural, americasvoicenow.org. Send me the email along with your arguments. I need logical, rational, well-reasoned arguments. I mean, I'm not going to take nonsense. You've got to give me the examples of how this will benefit, or example, just one, of how it will benefit you. I'll be more than happy to even discuss it with you privately or on the air. I'll debate it, and we'll let the audience decide if you get your $100 bill. I'm not a wealthy guy, but I'm pretty confident that between now and the time of my death, that $100 bill will never leave my possession. I ain't done. That's only one. Here's another one, and they get to free write these things. This is Mercy in Springfield, Mercy Hospital in Springfield. Every city's got one. For research, we may share your PHI, that's personal health information, with or without your permission. For research, we may share your PHI with researchers when their research has been approved by an institutional review board. Okay, so who's watching the watcher? Who's watching the institutional review board? How do we interview those people? How do we find out exactly what they're spending and whose money they're spending it on? How do we get an opportunity to understand what the criteria is for the IHB, the IRB, the Institutional Review Board? How do we have an opportunity to evaluate whether or not they're legitimately operating in our best interest or in some interest of the hospital, because you're going to get a grant? And so we can share the PHI with researchers when the research has been approved by an institutional review board and found by the IRB not to require patient permission. Oh, so hold on a minute. The institutional review board can make a determination in their sole and unilateral wisdom that I don't have to provide any permission. You're not asking me whether or not I have to? I mean, I don't have any say in this. You can make that decision on my behalf. You have the all-encompassing omnipotence and wisdom and omnipresence to know exactly whether or not you require patient permission. Can you find me someplace in the Constitution that justifies that authority in you? Then it goes on to say your permission is required for other types of research. They may also share your PHI without your permission. Again, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just like, boom. No, then you're not happy. Boom, 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 boom. Mercy may use or share PHI without your permission for the following purposes: public health activities, such as to report the occurrence of communicable diseases, to report information about victims of abuse, neglect, or domestic violence. Health oversight activities. That's broad. Such as Medicare and Medicaid program activities. Legal proceedings, such as in response to a subpoena or court order. Law enforcement purposes. Wow, that's so broad that, let's see, we could push California through that hole sideways. Such as with the police or other law enforcement officials who are pursuing a criminal suspect. I get it. You see, their argument there would be, well, you came in with a baseball bat stuck in the side of your head, and we got to find out who the guy is. Nobody would argue with that. But when you say law enforcement purposes, comma, such as, what that tells me is, and that's exactly their verbiage, not mine. What that tells me is you're giving me the least offensive example you can find so that I'll willingly sign this document. But it doesn't tell me the full gamut of what you can actually use it for. Medical examiners, coroners, and funeral directors. Well, if I'm dead, I really don't give a doggone what you got on me. Unless you guys pulled the trigger on me. For organ and tissue donation purposes. I get that. If I'm dead, again, you can have anything I got. To avert a serious health or safety threat. Well, that's pretty broad. What would that serious health or safety threat be? Please clarify for me, because I don't get it. To comply with workers' compensation laws. So-and-so makes a claim that they've been seeing too many patients. And your medical information is released to verify that, in fact, they did poke and prod you and give you a colonoscopy with their entire fist. With an entity legally authorized to assist in disaster relief efforts, such as the American Red Cross. But see, here again, when we see the such as clause, what that really means is we're giving you the least objectionable opportunity or example so that you will not balk and fight back. With an entity, any entity legally authorized based on whom's laws or based on rules and policy. See, because there's a big difference there. But see, they say, well, wait a minute. Once it's a rule or a policy, it automatically is now law. It's covered under law. Legally authorized to assist in disaster relief efforts, such as the American Red Cross. And, of course, who would argue with that? Like, let's say we had a flood or we had a tsunami or a tornado, and, of course, we want the Red Cross to come in and make sure everybody's got coffee and a blanket. But it doesn't cover FEMA and DHS. Of course it does, because they're, dagnabbit, they are legally authorized to assist in disaster relief efforts. And then here's the killer. This wraps up any holes that might have been out there for other purposes as required by law. Does this crap read to you like the guy at the end of the car commercial who says, it's made unintelligible on purpose. It's hidden from you because you're being scammed. I've got 1 minute left, and I've got 3 more of these, and I haven't even dipped into them. Other uses and disclosures that do not require your authorization. The St. John's healthcare system. Health oversight activities. Research purposes. To avoid harm. How broad is that? In order to avoid a serious threat to the health or safety of a person or the public, we may provide PHI to law enforcement personnel or persons able to prevent or lessen such harm. For specific government functions, we may disclose PHI of military personnel and veterans in certain situations, and we may disclose PHI for national security purposes, such as protecting the President of the United States and conducting intelligence operations. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to defend yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to America's Voice Now. The tyranny is everywhere. It's layered over you like a blanket. There's no escape. You've been enslaved under Obamacare. You've been enslaved underneath a Constitution that does not exist because it's written as a brand new document. It's a shadow government that operates over and on top of the original Constitution. You know why everyone violates the Constitution and they do it with impunity and immunity? Because there is no Constitution. They're not following the same one you believe in. You see, it's like trying to compare apples and bananas. One is round and the other isn't. And the two can never be compared because the color's not the same, the texture's not the same, the shape isn't the same. The Constitution that you believe in, the one that was done by our founders, is no longer the Constitution in operation. The Constitution that is in operation now allows tribunals. They're not courts, they're tribunals. It allows the police to pull you over and find $25,000 in a suitcase in your car that you were going to a real estate closing with and on your way, and they say, well, you know, I seem to smell marijuana. And suddenly they take $25,000 from you and say, if you want this money back, you're going to have to go to court and prove you didn't get it through some sort of a criminal enterprise. But I'm not a criminal. I got a job, and I can show you my pay. Well, then show it to the judge. Have a nice day. Now, you got 2 seconds to get out of here before we arrest you. What are you charging me with? We don't have to charge you with anything. It's our money now, and if you want it back, here's my name and my badge number. Here's my business card. Go and call my chief or my sheriff or whomever you want. But the truth of the matter is you've got 2 seconds to leave this vicinity right now before we arrest you for obstruction of justice. That's the Constitution they're operating by, ladies and gentlemen. They're operating under a constitution that says Dinesh D'Souza can be charged as a felon. And he can be bullied and bludgeoned into a plea agreement on something that every president and every politician has done for the last 100 years. Even members of the Senate, not just Ted Cruz, he was one of them, 5 of them, got together and wrote a letter and said, this is unconscionable and it is an enemies list. There was even a Democrat in there, I believe. Here's the point. It is selective prosecution for the purposes of carrying out an enemies list. We are living in a moment, in a time in history, when the phoenix of tyranny is rising from the ashes of liberty, ladies and gentlemen. You see, people have been standing around saying, I'm waiting for the fall of society. I'm waiting for the fall of civilization. I'm waiting for the collapse of America. What you don't know is it's already happened. It's done. It's over with. We've already lost. The phoenix of tyranny has risen from the ashes of liberty. Why? Why? Well, we have a president who says, this guy Putin is acting like a 19th century tyrant. And President Barack Obama isn't. I mean, to tell me that John Boehner, laying around greasing himself up so he can slip through the keyhole of the immigration rules, so he can betray his nation and not be held accountable for it. That's not tyranny? You mean the National Defense Authorization Act that's been passed by the Republicans and the Democrats, but mostly Republicans, that says that any American can be picked up and held indefinitely based on a belligerent act that's undefined and undefinable and, quite frankly, indefensible. Because you can't defend yourself, and I'll tell you why you can't. Because the rules say that once you've been picked up in this manner and you've been declared an enemy combatant based on your belligerent act, which God only knows what that is, you are barred from having access to an attorney. You can have no one appeal to you to a court to say, please, judge, help me understand what's happening here. Help me understand why this man is being held. You can't submit a habeas corpus, free the body motion to a judge. It's barred. You will not get it before a court, even if you can pay the filing fees. You'll be sitting in a jail cell. You can write a habeas corpus out on toilet paper with a crayon. Legally, the court will accept that. But if you're picked up under a National Defense Authorization Act charge, sorry. Doesn't matter if you write it in gold ink The court will not accept it. You can have no attorney. You cannot call an attorney. You cannot consult an attorney. You may not file a motion or a brief with the court that says, habeas corpus, free the body, explain to me why I'm here, or release me now. They don't have to tell you. You don't even have to be convicted of the belligerent act. All you have to be is charged. So if you thought it was bad that the cop stole your $25,000, wait until he takes your father. Wait until he takes your son. Wait until they take your mother. And you don't know where she is. And nobody's required to even tell you that they have her. Just a sudden disappearance. Just another one of those pesky disappearances. They can hold her, him, your daughter, your son, your mother, your wife, your husband. I sounded like Captain Kirk when I said that. They can hold them indefinitely. Indefinitely, until the end of hostilities. This is their language, not mine, folks. I'm giving you verbatim statements right out of their stuff. They can hold you indefinitely until the end of hostilities in the war on terror. And there is no place safe. It's not the United States anymore. You can't say that that's off the grid and it's off the battlefield. It's not. They've declared, Lindsey Graham said, the entire nation, the entire planet, all of continental United States, all of the territories, the water, the land, the bird nests, the bottoms of the volcanoes, they're all part of the battlefield in the war on global terror. They've declared it. So there's no place that you can hide. You can't say, well, if I go to Louisiana, that's not the battlefield. No, Louisiana is the battlefield now. We have courts. We have courts that don't operate as courts. They operate as tribunals. The justice system has completely collapsed, criminally and civilly. Civil actions are always found in favor of the corporations, who are paying the freight. They're keeping Congress people in money and food and women and wine and song and men, if you're a woman, I guess. Maybe women if you're a woman and men if you're a man. These days, it doesn't seem to matter. And, of course, the NSA is tracking it all because they want proof in case you change your mind to try to back out and become a hero. Can't have any of them. Well, you might decide to change your mind. I mean, you did agree that this is what you were going to do. But since you've decided to change your mind, don't forget that we've got this raft of pictures of you in the bathroom there with the straw in your nose or the little boy sitting on your lap that isn't your own son. And, you know, of course, your wife would probably not be too happy about that. And she might ask, who's that little boy? And, of course, the folks at the New York Times are certainly going to want to know. You know, Harry, we know about those real estate deals. We've got empirical proof. We've got mountains of evidence that you accepted bribes. So if you don't stall this bill in the Senate, if you don't make sure that you pass it without any amendments, I don't care how many parliamentary procedures and fiery hoops you've got to jump through, Harry, you're going to do what you want to do. And you do want to do this, Harry. We have an executive. We have an executive. Yesterday, his chief of staff came out and said, just for the record, you guys, I mean, I don't want to burst anybody's bubble here, but you can bet we're going to be picking up the pace on executive actions. Excuse me? Dan Pfeiffer, senior advisor directly to President Obama, the senior advisor, Dan Pfeiffer. The White House will be, quote, picking up the pace on executive action. picking up the pace on executive action. In an op-ed that he wrote for Huffington Post, he put it in writing. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, here's a written confession. He argued that congressional Republicans are not interested in engaging on the economy. That was his argument. And instead, they're spending their time obsessively trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act. These are his words, not mine. And, quote, ginning up politically motivated investigations. That was the argument he gave. Quote, given this dynamic, President Obama has only one option. Use every ounce of his authority to unilaterally improve economic security. Dan, I'm accusing you of being a liar right here, right now, in public. Well, first of all, trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act has nothing to do with the economy. That's not an economic fact. It's not a factor. I mean, it may be an element, but you guys have done nothing on the economy for 5.5 years. And secondly, ginning up politically motivated investigations on what? The IRS and Benghazi and Fast and Furious? These aren't missions without a cause. There's no Man of La Mancha here chasing windmills. These are real, legitimate problems. The VA? What is that, just ginning up a politically motivated investigation? Why, because only 40 people died, not 4,000? How many do you need, Dan? How much blood do you need on your hands before it becomes not politically motivated? And it's dealing with the economy. Excuse me. The VA scandal is not about the economy. The IRS issue is not about the economy. Fast and Furious wasn't about the economy. Obama's lies to us to get us to accept the Obamacare under false statements with willful, intentional misrepresentations of the truth and malice aforethought. That had nothing to do with the economy or economic issues. I'm sure it impacts the economy, but that's not the motivator. The motivator for all of this was for you to build a totalitarian surveillance police state. Dan? So how is that justification for you to commit executive action on the economy? And what do you consider the economy? Immigration? Well, let me clarify for you. What STEM shortage? Science, technology, and math. Engineering and math. Those are the skill sets needed in the economy. The high-tech economy we keep hearing about from the likes of Google and AOL and Facebook and all these scumbags out there who pretend that there's a shortage. But there is no shortage. How do I know that? Well, I can give it to you very simply. The Economic Policy Institute, the Rand Corporation, who's generally the ones who are writing all these super secret plans about mind control and all that other crap for the government, the Urban Institute, the National Research Council, every last one of them, CIS, the Center for Immigration Studies, have all come out. That's 5 reports. 5! All 5 of them came out and said, there is no evidence that STEM workers are in short supply. I repeat, there is no evidence that STEM workers are in short supply. Public Broadcasting Service, an apologet for the Obama administration for everything from, for every unconstitutional act and betrayal the guy has committed. They published an opinion piece based on the study that was done by Economic Policy Institute. Here's what it says. They entitled it, The Bogus High-Tech Worker Shortage, How Guest Workers Lower U.S. Wages. That's what it's about, ladies and gentlemen. And what it's really about is an executive that is not necessarily interested in anything other than appeasing corporations, the corporatocracy that has become this fascist partner in government. Your corporations, your government, working together to fleece you and enslave you. That's it, in a nutshell. That's the whole bowl of wax in an acorn. Oh, don't say acorn. Golly gee. Now, for the record, let's understand something. And I told you about this yesterday. The real motivation for corporations is not even to lower wages. I'm going to tell you what the real motivation is. They want a flood of new H-1B visas. That means that when you come over here and you study in the university here and you get your degree, that they want to, and this is Luis Gutierrez's statement, they want to staple your green card to your diploma. So when you get your diploma, you automatically get your green card. So, you're a kid from France, or you're a kid from the Middle East, or you're a kid from Spain, or you're a kid from South America, or Greenland, or Iceland, or Banana Republic, whatever. You come over here, you get your degree. You get a bachelor's in science. You're an electrical engineer. You get your degree, and with it comes a green card. Cha-chunk. Guess what? Your new high-tech employer holds the keys to your life because you're an indentured servant to that company indefinitely. Why? Because that H-1B visa and the green card associated with it, they can have it yanked at any time. So become a problem, demand too much money, make a ripple, we'll just get rid of you. And that's a hold that they don't have over your average American worker. Because the average American worker can say, take this job and shove it. And get away with it. But when you're from Pakistan, when you're from India, and you have to go back to Bhopal, and you have to live in a room that's 12 by 12 with 9 other people, and crap in a gully, and a gutter out the back, and there's no such thing as electricity, and you've got to leave your Apple, and your iPad, and your iPhone, and your fancy clothes, and your $200 sunglasses, and your little sports car behind because you've been kicked out of the country because you made waves. Big problem. You'll do anything to remain an indentured servant. You'll pay any price to not go back there. Your nation and the phoenix of tyranny rising from the ashes of liberty. It's engendered by 50% of all the pharmaceutical drugs produced in the world are being ingested by Americans. You may as well strap yourself into a chair like some kind of a spy movie from the 80s. Strap yourself into a chair, hold your eyes open with toothpicks, and watch the propaganda movie, the brainwashing movie, while the mad scientist runs in and gives you that gigantic needle. But you don't even need to be tied to the chair, do you? You just need to be told that this will make you feel better. Don't worry about the bad economic data. Don't worry about the fact that you don't have any money. Don't worry about the fact that you don't have any future. Don't worry about the fact that you just graduated university and you've got $120,000 in education bills that, by the way, you happen to owe to us government because there's no private banks that are lending money anymore, and you can't find a job. Don't worry about that. Just take this little pill. And don't stop taking them all of a sudden, because when you do, let's hope you don't have any guns. For goodness, they're going to go in there and commit another school shooting. They usually say that part under their breath. Every right, every God-given natural right, I don't care if you're an atheist, then they're given by nature. Every natural right you have as a human being is under assault and under threat. Your First Amendment right to free speech, they're trying to write legislation that will limit and lock down the airwaves, shut you down if you're not a approved and licensed journalist, limit what is a journalist and what news organizations can actually produce news because they're pissed off that alternative media shows like this are actually educating Americans. And they're pissed off that you're not watching CNN, CNBC, Communist News Network, MSLSD, NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox News. They're furious that you're no longer reading the Huffington Post, that you're not sitting there drooling on the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and instead you're reading stuff like the Liberty Crier, the Drudge Report, America's Voice Now.org. They're so pissed off at me that YouTube takes my stuff down. They're so pissed off at me that YouTube is changing the numbers of people who watch the videos, ladies and gentlemen. I saw it myself. This is my own personal sworn testimony, and I'll make it under oath. If there was a Bible sitting here, I'd swear by it. I logged on the other day, and they go in and they mark all the comments as spam since they changed the new rules on comments. All the comments are now marked as spam all the time, and I got to go in and manually add them back in because people never see them. And if people don't see comments, they think, well, this guy, nobody listens to this guy. And on top of that, people look at what? The numbers of how many people have watched the video. So I logged on, and it was an hour after I'd uploaded the video. It takes at least an hour every morning for them to upload. And I went in there to look at it. I got back to my office. I clicked on it. There were 40 views. It had only been 40 minutes, tops an hour. 40 people had watched it. I clicked through to actually get to it because I was looking at the screen that it shows all the videos that I have and how many. There's 900 of them up there, 987 or something like that. When I clicked through, it went from 40 to 31. Excuse me. How do you go down in viewers on YouTube? Well, you could say, I don't allow videos and them to run ads on my videos. Have you ever noticed that there's no ads on my videos? You know why? I'm not trying to make money at it, but they're pissed off about the fact that I don't do that. But here's the real problem. They don't like the content, and they don't like what I have to say. And they'll do anything to keep you from hearing that. YouTube is owned by Google. Hello. And Google has become the 800-pound gorilla in the internet room. Ladies and gentlemen, the simple truth is this. The phoenix of tyranny is rising from the ashes of liberty. The police state is here. It's already in full bloom. I don't care whether the media is telling you this or not. You can look around and see for the evidence. You see the evidence for yourself. Stop listening to those people who are telling you it's not happening. And listen with your eyes and your ears. Smell the fire. You're inundated with a combination of drugs and propaganda that are manipulating your senses and your mind. Why is Congress completely ambivalent to everything that's wrong in the country? I'm going to tell you why. Because they already know it's over. And they're just waiting for the hammer to fall. That's why they don't care that it's a $17.5 trillion debt. That's why they don't care what Barack Obama does or whether immigration goes through. Please share this with friends and family. And I don't care if you sit down and have an AVN night and invite a couple of guys over for a beer or a couple of girls over and say, look, it's time. We're good friends. It's time we had a clear, frank discussion about where our country's going. And I know you guys don't like to talk about politics and so forth and so on, but I'd like you to watch a couple of videos with me. Spend an hour doing this, and then let's have a discussion about it. Do it at your church. Do it at your school. Do it with people you hang out with. Do it with people you go to work with. Do it with people you like. Do it with people you don't like. Be a leader, because I'm telling you, we are desperately in need of them. Mike at americasvoicenow.org. That's Mike at americasvoicenow.org. God bless you all. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.